So how smart are smart devices? Are they smart enough to be your friend to the end? What's going on, y'all? My name's Robert Adams. I am your horror movie expert over here at the Cinefanatics, and I have just gotten out of seeing the 2019 remake of Child's Play. Yeah, so right off the bat, there's not going to be any spoilers in this, but I mean, you kind of know the story already. Killer doll comes back and torments a family. That's what's happening in this movie. So, I mean, right off the bat, I also have to state, for complete transparency, I am a huge Child's Play fan. It is one of my favorite horror movie franchises of all time. I love the concept of the killer doll. I love everything about it. It's just so quirky. I love the idea behind it. So when they announced that they were going to remake it without Don Mancini, who created the original, having any hand in this whatsoever, I was a little worried, and I would actually tell you that scared me more than any way possible that this remake could ever possibly scare me. So with that being said, I think the first thing we have to get out of the way is just the direct comparisons between the two. The original movie, for a quick background, dealt with the serial killer Charles Lee Ray, who is gunned down in a toy store by Detective Mike Norris. Charles Lee Ray, who has a background in voodoo, uses voodoo incantations to move his soul to possess a kid's doll. And then that doll gets acquired by Karen Barkley and her son Andy Barkley, and then proceeds to wreak all havoc on the family, the neighborhood, their lives, and so on and so forth. Multiple sequels down the line. We see Jennifer Tilly as Tiffany later on. So yeah, I mean, it's been a massive franchise that came from a very simple idea, and it's one of the things I actually really loved of the franchise. Now, of course, this movie took it in a completely different direction. Gone are the serial killer Charles Lee Ray and Brad Dourif's voice, unfortunately, and we have replaced that with basically an AI, a smart device that kind of like an Alexa or any other device that you talk to by calling it by an AI name to begin with, is now what controls this, what's now called a buddy doll instead of good guy doll. And this doll connects to an app on your phone that can connect to other products that are like a part of the Internet of Things through this company called Caslin. So now we've got this doll that was made by a disgruntled employee who, for all intents and purposes, had the right to be disgruntled, but not quite what he did to this doll. And now we've got this doll that has no filter at all whatsoever, no control, and it's out on the loose, running amok, learning and adjusting to human life in the worst possible way. So right off the bat, I would say no. This really is not a Child's Play movie. In so much that you've lost the fact of a serial killer, an actual human element behind the Chucky doll, and you've replaced it with an AI. This isn't much better than, I would say, other movies that dealt with like machines or robots taking over. For example, Maximum Overdrive, where all the machines of the world were going out of control after a comet flew over. And Terminator, in which we've got machines that have taken over from a future that have come back to our present to try to assassinate the human leader. I mean, even so much as like The Matrix, any movie that pretty much deals with machines taking over, which there's a lot more than what I just said, that is kind of where this is going. I would say this is only Child's Play as far as connecting to the franchise in name alone. Yes, you still have the name of Chucky, the killer doll. You still have Andy Barkley as the kid, Karen Barkley as his mom, and Mike Norris as the detective. And that's pretty much where the similarities drop. They made the Chucky doll look similar, but it is nowhere near the actual Chucky doll from the original movies. So if you separate those, completely think of it as its own movie with a few nods to the original Child's Play, that's where I'm going to draw my opinion, my criticism of this movie. As far as it being a remake of the original Child's Play, I would say it's terrible. You've lost all that thought, that feeling, that human connection. Now, this being a movie of its own product, of its own age and time, it's a little bit better. Because now we live in a world where we're surrounded by these smart devices, where we can tell Alexa to play a certain song, where we can tell our cars to start warming up before we get out to them, where we can turn lights on just by saying lights on. Our front doors know that we're coming home and automatically unlock because of the proximity to our cell phones. This is the age that we live in, and therefore this movie, with the direction that it went, the creative differences that it did, makes a whole lot of sense. So the story of this overall still is Andy receives Chucky. Chucky, again, has no rules, no filter upon creation of the doll, and therefore goes crazy. I think the movie actually, it was very good in the way of the terms, again, of how much we depend on these smart devices, how much these Internet of Things that we have in our homes are controlling or possibly even ruling over our lives, how much we depend on them. And so therefore, I think it had a really good message as far as that goes. As far as acting, the kid that played Andy Barkley, it was Gabriel Bateman. I think he did very well. He was a lot older than the original Andy, so therefore it was kind of weird the fact that this kid, who was pretty much a teenager, is getting a doll. And I felt that was a little weird, but he seemed to work with it, and it was fairly believable that he and his personality would make friends with this AI doll and form that connection with it. So I absolutely loved that. I thought he did a fantastic job. Aubrey Plaza, I would say, one, I'm not against Aubrey Plaza in a movie. I really do like Aubrey Plaza overall as an actress. From Funny People, when I first saw her, through the various things that she's been in, on to, of course, April Ludgate, and lately I just saw her in an episode of Hot Ones, and it's quite possibly the best episode of Hot Ones I've ever seen. So go check that out on YouTube as well. And I would have to say that I think Aubrey Plaza was probably miscast in this. I don't believe she quite had that connection with her son that she was supposed to, and I just did not feel like she was really there. I feel like her role was kind of a small role given how credible of an actress that she was, and I think she could have done better had she been given a lot more. So, I mean, I don't know why Aubrey Plaza was the actress that they chose for this, but again, I think she was miscast in it. And then Brian Tyree Henry, who is taking over the role of Mike Norris from Chris Sarandon. I think he did a fantastic job. It was a different character in so much as in the original, Mike Norris was the officer who gunned down Charles Lee Ray at the very beginning. So he connects more with Andy Barkley than he does, say, Chucky, which makes sense again because we're going back to the fact that Chucky is an AI robot, so you don't have that origin of the police officer being connected to Charles Lee Ray as we did in the original. But I think given the circumstances, I think he did a phenomenal job, was very likable in his role. And then, of course, you have to mention Mark Hamill as the voice of Chucky. And here's the thing, casting anyone as the voice of Chucky other than Brad Dourif, in my book, is sacrilege. You just don't do that. He will forever be Chucky. I mean, you look at the list of horror icons and the actors who have played him, it's like Robert Englund playing Freddy. You don't recast these characters. That being said, I think he did a fantastic job in that role. I was expecting he was going to come off sounding a lot like his Joker from Batman the Animated Series, and he absolutely did not. You could still tell his voice through his voice that it was Mark Hamill, but he definitely gave some personality and character to this Chucky doll. Which I find was weird because a lot of times this Chucky doll did not have the facial expressions that the original Chucky did. In the original movie, when Chucky came alive, like he went from a very stale plastic doll face to a very human type of face. He made expressions that no doll could ever do because of the restrictions of a doll's plastic face. So this doll seemed to also kind of be restricted while still giving as much as it could as far as expressions go. So there really wasn't much of a separation between the doll and then the doll being in full-blown murder killer mode type of thing, except like towards the very end there was a shot where the doll was just completely furrowed browed, but still not quite as evil looking as the original Chucky. But I think Mark Hamill did a good job as far as the voice behind that. It gave off just the proper amount of creepy given the personality and the situation that this Chucky comes from. The other thing I have to mention is I'm actually quite surprised about the amount of gore that was in this movie. This movie was done by the producers of the Stephen King's It movie that has come out lately. So they did kind of push more towards getting the gore out there. The original Chucky movie, the original Child's Play, really wasn't that heavy on the gore. There was blood, but there really wasn't anything like super uber gory about it. So this one really pushed that to the forefront, and I really like that they stuck that in there. So overall, I'm going to have to rate this movie. My thoughts, feelings, and opinions, again, it's a step away from the original franchise, but it also it's kind of a refreshing take, a modern day idea that they put in just using the Chucky name, the Child's Play name, and all the characters overall. So out of 5, I'm going to have to rate this probably about... I'm going to have to rate this about 2.5 Nest thermostats, because that's just a creepy smart device that I'm familiar with. Anyway, so that's going to be it for my review. What did you think? Did you see this Child's Play remake? Let me know what you think down below. Make sure you hit like or dislike on this video if you would like. And up above my head, there is a subscribe button. Over here off to the side, there is a couple other videos that we as the Cinefanatics have made. And as always, we are the Cinefanatics, and we are your friends to the end. Later.
This is the end.